I'm Rich Lieberman. This is the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse, and I've got to do some commentary and some reporting about something that, ironically, I have not been much involved in. I only became involved because I had talked about Ron Owens and had a very public divorce and a subsequent apology that had nothing to do with the legal entanglements and the drama surrounding his daughter, for which I must proclaim, as I did and have said as much, I paid no attention to. Frankly, wasn't even knowing that it was even taking place because I don't really enjoy nor do I get engrossed in tabloid kind of material, even if it's true. And but now I enter again into this drama, which I can only refer to it as a drama, because I myself have been sort of semi implicated in it. Not the case itself, but me talking about Ron and having a conversation with him several times with him and his wife, Jan Black. Now, just to go over this, a little history, and then we'll get to what I'm about to report today. Today being the fact that we are live on a Wednesday, um, and this is June 25th. So, as you may or may not know, Ron's daughter, Laura Owens, has been indicted on fraud and accusations having to do with her involvement with men, namely the most prominent, the guy who played The Bachelor. And I'm not going to get into details because I know most of you who know this and have paid attention to this case, you know the whole story. And I'm getting back into this story because there was another article in the Chronicle on June the 10th, which was relayed to me. I didn't see it initially, but then subsequently read the latest article, which conveniently Ron Owens didn't comment on the situation involving his daughter. He glanced over it. The latest article said, "We need more money." We being Ron and Jan Black. And Ron was set up a GoFundMe page, ostensibly because he said he's been having issues and health uh, health maladies, expenses associated with his diagnosis involving Parkinson's and multiple bouts with cancer and all that. And even though the union for which Ron spent over 4 decades, the SAG-AFTRA, covers 100% medical medical finances, medical fees, medical expenses to both he and a spouse, in this case, Jan Black. Well, the latest article on June the 10th, and if you don't know about that, you can Google the Chronicle article. Again, I criticized two initial articles back in March in which he said what he said, and there was a GoFundMe page set up for which he got over $130,000, ostensibly to cover these whatever costs, which were not detailed by Ron. And I spoke to him and Jan Black not soon after those articles. And because let me just kind of, I'm speaking out loud here, but let me just tell you the situation. I got a ton of bad pub saying the inference was that I was covering up, that I didn't say anything about Ron's situation with regards to this massive fund that he set up through GoFundMe. The inference was that they being Ron and his wife, Jan, that they were using some of that money to cover legal expenses associated with his daughter, Laura Owens. And I talked to Ron and I talked to Jan Black, and they vehemently denied that. And that was back in March. In fact, I even told them, Ron specifically, to come on this show and to talk about that. He indicated, after he initially said yes, that he couldn't because of the legal situation. This was before the indictment was announced about a month and a half ago. I said, okay. First, he agreed that he would talk about it, albeit have to be very guarded because of the fact that, the situation is very tense. It's very serious. Allegations, accusations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I get it. I would have liked a direct no, I'm not going to participate because of that. But he initially told me yes, then he told me no. Okay, which I discussed here on my show. Well, now, 2 weeks ago, once again, there was another article in the Chronicle. And once again, Ron was quoted as saying, look, I need more help. I need more money. And the author, another oblivious, in my opinion. Now, I have my issues with the Chronicle, SF Gate, all of them. But I wouldn't say anything negative unless I had substance and ammunition. And initially, the first two articles, one of which appeared Mercury News, San Francisco Chronicle, and they raised all this money. They didn't even bring up the situation regarding his daughter, Laura. And the inference at the time, and still today, was that some of that money has to be going to, which is now not one lawyer, but two very prominent lawyers. Ron vehemently denied all that he was using some of the money to pay for the lawyers. Jan Black also denied it. And I said, well, you realize, and I said this directly to Ron and Jan, and they've called me back and we spoke at great length. I reported that. This latest article from June 10th, in which they say we need more money, Ron specifically, they brought up the situation involving his daughter, Laura Owens. But he didn't address it, didn't say anything. When that article came out, again, I got some emails from people saying, why are you so quiet? And I said, I haven't been quiet. I told people I'm in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, a proverbial catch-22. I'm prefer to stay out of all this, but I involved myself in it because I was getting accused of being, this is a quote, bought off by Ron, so that I wouldn't talk about the situation involving his daughter. So what did I do? I called Ron back, texted him. I also talked to Jan Black. I didn't talk directly. I have called them repeated times to want to get something on the record or even off the record, frankly, with this latest article that appeared in the Chronicle on June the 10th. Hey guys, what's going on? Now keep in mind, and I stated this as much, I don't have kids, but I know the fact this is involving his daughter. He's a father. And his wife, Jan, she's a mother. And their daughter is entangled in this. I understand that. But I also understand the very, very clear indication, the inference out there. What is going on? Something smells to high heaven. Why now, again, in this latest article, do you need more money, Ron Owens? because the union would not ostensibly, they pay medical bills. When you put as much time, it doesn't even really matter, but Ron was vested. He worked for multiple decades at KGO. He was in SAG-AFTRA. So again, I'm just covering all the bases here. But I wanted to know what was taking place because there's a lot of speculation out there. There's lots of people talking about this. My name came up again. So I called Ron again and I called Jan and I asked them to please clear this up one way or the other. And if they didn't want to talk about it, that's fine too. But at least give me something because it was not really dealt with in that article in the Chronicle on June the 10th. Well, I called once again Ron, called Jan, left messages, multiple messages. They are not talking. They're not even saying we're not going to comment. They're not even saying no comment, anything like that. Now, I want to say something very clear. I'm not implicating Ron or Jan Black. I'm just kind of letting you know that I wanted a response myself without getting into the weeds of his daughter's case. It's a very, very serious charge. It's an indictment. There is a case pending in Arizona. I must say, understand that many of you out there, with good reason, are suspicious. I had a very strong bonding, a friendship with Ron. I still do. I wouldn't call it bonding anymore because of this. Because quite frankly, other than what we've talked about, me saying, I miss the days of San Francisco radio and how he was a giant at KGO. Putting all of that aside, I feel it's my duty to at least cover my end. I do think something smells to high heaven. I don't know what it is. I'm not implicating Ron, but on the other hand, I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to just be silent once again, especially when my name gets brought up that I'm covering for him. Because the articles, any of those articles, has not dealt with the Laura Owens situation. And the feeling out there that is some of this money, if not a good portion of this GoFundMe, which continues to gain more money, is being used in a manner or in a method that is not intended. Once again, I want to make it very clear. I'm not implicating Ron Owens or Jan Black. I did phone, ask both of them to comment or at least give me something or anything, and they're not talking whatsoever. Not even a no comment. And the article in the Chronicle doesn't even ask him about it. It's brought up, it being his daughter's legal situation. But there's no questioning him. There's no, hey, what about this? It wasn't put forth in the San Francisco Chronicle on June the 10th. I find that pretty bizarre, pretty poor journalism, if you ask me, and I think if you ask anybody else. For the record, once again, I want to make this very clear. I wasn't bought off. I stayed out of this. I am addressing this as I have, folks, those of you that watch me here, the people who are associated with Clayton Richard, like Dave Neal and other folks. And by the way, was asked at least, to talk about this. And I politely refused at the time because I don't know what to say other than what's out there. Then subsequently, there was an indictment, very serious charges against Laura Owens. Stayed out of it still. But then June 10th arrived almost 2 weeks ago, now over 2 weeks ago. And people asking me, well, what's going on, Rich? Why are you, what's happening? So Look, I don't need the publicity, folks. I've been involved in various situations, not like this. And I tried my very, very best to let Ron and Jan say something because they know that I've been out there and they know that people like Dave Neal have talked to me. And now it's murky. It's bizarre. It's a little odd. I'm trying to be very diplomatic. And I see a whole commotion about this. The accusations are very serious. So I've tried to kind of stay a distance, understanding that you're dealing with Ron. He's dealing with the daughter who's being implicated and accused of a very serious charge: fraud, perjury, you know, and this is now entered beyond just gossip. There's been an indictment. And I'm repeating myself, but I want to make it very clear so there's no innuendo, that there's no, ifs, ands, or buts, because you've contacted me. A lot of you have. What's going on? Chronicle hasn't covered this thoroughly. They haven't even covered the Laura Owens deal, nor any of the papers. They have done these lengthy articles on Ron Owens and his plight. And I very much sympathize with Ron, who has had to deal with bouts, 4 bouts in his count, cancer, his Parkinson's disease diagnosis of years ago, and then this subsequent thing involving his daughter. But I also have to deal with you folks, and I say this, I'm not trying to be righteous or, holier than thou by putting myself in this situation. At first, and they were telling me this, both Ron and Jan, that the other side, these people are into headlines and gossip and trying to embarrass and put our daughter in a kind of a harm's way kind of a thing. I understand that. But now I also understand the other side and the people like Dave Neal who have made various allegations themselves, which seem to have a bit of, if not a full bit of oomph behind their allegations, including one of the men himself, and that's Mr. Clayton Richard. This is the feeling out there. Where is that money going to? Because SAG-AFTRA does cover medical expenses, especially with people who are fully vested. So, did the Chronicle ask Ron that? I understand the angst of being, without being a father myself, the fact that it is your child, even though she's, 35, 36, I don't know. I know she's in her mid 30s. But I also understand the other side now. And I really wish that this matter would be cleared up. Now, it's entered the legal domain, and yeah, there's certain things now you can't talk. But why then was there another article on June the 10th? Somebody told me somebody did another favor for Ron and Jan. Now, look, even how can I put this? If they had commented to me off the record, or somebody had said, "Hey, look, we can't talk about this," or we really don't. It's not just because of the legal situation. We just can't talk about it. Understood. But I've been getting massive, and I do mean massive. Where are you? Why are you silent, Lieberman? What's the deal? You yada, 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 and all that. I had to come out, which accelerated my pursuit, if you will, of Ron. At least, Ron, tell me something, uh, we can't comment. That's fine. But now Ron is totally silent, as is Jan Black, not saying a word, you know. And the strong inference out there, and this is very, very, very serious now. Where is that money going? The GoFundMe money, which I think has raised about anywhere from 125 to $130,000. You can't use that money that you said is for medical expenses and whatever. He didn't go into detail, but that was the implication. For lawyers, perhaps, they denied it. They denied it to me on the phone back in March. But now, with all this news, now they have another lawyer. So, where are we at now? We have a case that is pending. We have GoFundMe account, which has gone up in terms of the amount of money raised. And now people are asking me, well, Rich, where is that money going to? How are they paying for these lawyers? To which I was going to ask Ron and Jan, his wife, themselves. And they both said, and this was at the time when they spoke to me in March, that the first lawyer was doing it pro bono. But now they have another lawyer. So I wondered aloud, I don't think, but I don't know. I don't know about this. I don't think they would use that money in a manner in which would be falsified and use it for something other than what it was intended for. But I don't know that. I don't know that. So right now I'm being selfish, folks. This is where we're at. And I'm sure Ron is going to get wind of this, as he should. My broadcast, as would be Jan, get knowledge of this. And look, folks, and I don't want to sound again, I don't want to put myself on this pedestal, but I've offered them individually, combined, a show in which they can say publicly, it's not going to be anything compromising their case, their daughter's case, to come clean, as the headline said a couple of weeks ago. I was ready to put this away and not talk about it anymore, folks. And I keep referring to that article in the San Francisco Chronicle on June 10th, which said from Ron in so many words, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, I still need more help. I still need more money. And they linked the GoFundMe account. And, I'm looking to the side here and I see all this. I haven't read the specific deal here and all these comments, but this is quite a case. This is quite a case. And of course, look, it's involving a man who used to, well, not Ron directly, but his daughter. And, there's, charges against her. And then also she's goofy, she's crazy, all that kind of stuff, which is what's going to happen when you have the details and the various people involved in this, such as the former bachelor and other men, not as public, not as famous as this guy, Clayton Richard. And I was ready to put it to rest. And if you read, it's not a very lengthy article, but it's June 10th, and it was in sfchronicle.com, but you can get it and read it for yourself. And I just thought for me to be silent on this would be not right. So I had to kind of come out. And also, I'm going to say this for the last time, contacted Ron himself. No comment. No, nothing. Silence from both Ron and Jan. Where is the money going? So, look, uh, it's really difficult when you're kind of semi in the middle. I'm not putting myself in the middle, right there, so to speak. There has been a lot of there's been a lot of things about this put out there that are quite serious and all that they are. But now you have this ancillary issue, which is almost as serious as the initial allegations and accusations about Laura Owens. So, where do we go from here? I hope to hear from Ron and Jan, but if not, then at least I have hopefully come clean with you guys myself. Not that I was holding anything in because I don't know anything about this other than what I've read. And if anything, and I've said this before, the Chronicle to do not one, but two articles. And now they didn't even address this thing with Laura Owens, the inference, and it's strong. It's based on pretty good information. Where is the money going? Are you not maybe using some of this money to pay for these lawyers now? Not one lawyer, but two. Yeah, that's wrong. You can't do that. You have to say, hey, it's not just for my medical. And even that is at question because of the fact that medical is fully covered by the pension, the union pension that you get when you retire, when you're vested. There's no stopgap. You get covered for all medical expenses. Well, the Chronicle doesn't even talk about this. Then there was another article. You have three articles. The initial articles in March. San Jose Mercury News. Don't address this at all. Chronicle, article by Aiden Vaziri. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. This wasn't even brought forward, wasn't even mentioned. The case involving his daughter, which I understand is very awkward, but you've got to at least say what's going on. He was finally mentioned and referred to in the June 10th article, but nothing. Ask him about it. He didn't address it. And now I am addressing it myself because there is merit to it. As uncomfortable, as awkward, as inconvenient, so to speak, as it is, you have to at least address it. Owens is not saying anything, nothing, not even a no comment, and Jan Black has remained silent on this. So that's where we're at, folks. And look, I don't know where it goes from here. I've already said that there's a case pending in Arizona where Mr. Owens and Jan Black reside in Scottsdale. And I will surmise that we will probably, I would hope, get some questions answered on this between now and then. But if not, then the mystery continues to be out there. So hopefully by me and coming out with this, and I want to just finally say this, look, not patting myself on the back in any way, shape, or form, but I want to be very, very clear. I could have just brushed this aside. And again, I know many of you were really, really angry and pissed off at me for good reason, because I didn't talk about this for a long, long time. I keep telling you at the time, I didn't know about it. Honestly, I don't look at TMZ a lot or, Perez Hilton and that shit. I just don't do it. I don't get involved in it because it doesn't interest me. I like news, politics, and, real news. I had no idea. Then I became immersed in it because of the situation that I've described now. And I understood the accusations, not having to do with Laura Owens, but the other thing. So it would not be it would not be sanguine, so to speak, if I ignored it. So now this is the second time I've come out and brought up your your questions. Those of you that have paid attention to this, those of you that read the article on June the 10th in the San Francisco Chronicle about Ron Owens' latest request for more money via his GoFundMe, have legitimate concerns. Where is that money going? There are still people, some prominent people, I may add, still contributing to it. And it specifically states it's for this or whatever that is, but not lawyers or legal situations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I get all that. And I don't take any kind of joy in bringing this up. And I'm not, as I said, I'm not in any way, I want to be clear as all get go. I'm not implicating anybody. Ron, Jan Black, obviously, I have nothing to do with the case. I'm not going to impugn his daughter. She's got her own legal woes to deal with. But as somebody who got involved in this in sort of a side manner, I at least hope that me shining light on what you all have said to me in terms of emails, in terms of what I mean, I'm looking at YouTube right now and I see all this, hey, we just want the truth. I see one comment right here. Why are they not talking? We'll leave that to the lawyers. But and I appreciate those of you that have said, look, we know what you're saying. You've covered yourself fine and fine. Okay. Get all that too. And I'm just doing what is normal, I would hope. And if you think that there's, well, let me just say this. If you're involved in this, or if you know anybody, or if there's, I don't want gossip, but if you want to send me some information, maybe you have questions yourself, maybe, I don't know, there's information that you don't want to, talk about in this environment. If you want to send me a question and you want to remain anonymous, by the way, but make sure, I don't want, I check everything. But my email is rich, RICH dot Lieberman, Lieberman, rich.lieberman at gmail.com. Rich.lieberman at gmail.com. If you have anything to add, if you have information, if you want to remain anonymous, that's fine too. If you want to, state something, God forbid, on the record, if you are in a position to do that, that's also fine. I just sounds like a cliche, sounds corny, but let me say it. I just want the truth. And look, let's also be very clear. Both sides, they both might be right. Ron may be in need because of whatever. Jan Black, they may be in need of extra money and they're asking for more money. The other side, that's very legit. Mr. Neal, Dave Neal, you know who I am, Dave Neal. You've contacted me via X, Twitter, and I have nothing to hide myself. And I've hopefully cleared the air in this environment with regards to my involvement now. But I just, like everybody else, shed some light on this. Tell us, Ron and Jan, in so many ways, through a representative, if not yourself, that the money that you've raised, it's well over $125,000-$130,000, is indeed going to the manner, the direction that you've said vis-a-vis these articles in the Chronicle and the Mercury News. I think that's all we care about, right? Okay. So once again, rich.lieberman at gmail.com. And we'll go from there. Thanks for watching. And thank you for being, if you haven't already, become a subscriber to my YouTube page. and you can just press a button on that end. And if you go on my Google page, if you want to contribute, I am funded by subscribers only. I don't want to be influenced by advertisers. So this is a reader, 100% reader, watcher website on YouTube and my Google page. Hey, we'll see you later. And I promise you, folks, those of you interested, I will follow up on this. Trust me. And I will give you any new information that I can gather that is relevant to the case or important. Of course, I will convey to you. Thanks for watching.